happening in the background.
I like your tree. It's very pretty.
All right. Why can't I bring? There it is. It's not now. All right. Can you guys see the screen, the unit 2?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hi, Kaden.
Oh.
Hi. All right, so we're gonna get going. If kiddos join, that's good. So we're gonna start unit 2. I think everyone here at the screen has completed their unit 1 test. If you haven't, let me know. I do have some time 3rd hour and 4th hour today that I could help, or we'll figure out a time this week if you need some help with that. And I think, Kaden, are you coming in this week?
I'm not sure. I think I might.
Okay. And then Jess, are you coming in this week?
Maybe. I didn't plan on it.
Okay, we can talk about that after class today. Okay, no, you guys are fine. All right, so we're starting a new unit called Understanding Markets. Can you guys hear me okay? Because I've got James in class, so I'm going to stand up and teach today. So,
yeah, we could hear you.
Okay, good. But the first thing I'm going to show you is this. So Miss Chef actually made this slide, but Mr. Jackson and Mr. Mennerold are going to be randomly joining classes today. And if they join and you show them that you have something Christmassy that you're wearing or whatever, or it's in your background, or you do a Google background that's holiday themed, they're going to put you in a drawing to possibly get some gift cards. So, Mr.
Winter, you guys, anything winter,
Yeah.
We're going to be pretty lenient.
Yeah, winter. Yeah, I know not everybody maybe celebrates Christmas, so even just winter stuff.
Can I just have my screen towards the stuff?
Yeah.
Tree right there.
Yeah.
There's a tree.
Yeah, that's fine. So whatever, just put something wintry behind you. And I know James is sitting with a Christmas decoration on their desk right now, and maybe tomorrow they'll wear something. So that's there.
Mr. Jackson, does that work? It's snow camel.
Oh, I don't know if he can see you right now.
Yeah, I can see it.
Oh, you can see it. Okay.
So we're doing this so you all know, so that more people turn their cameras on.
These guys do when I ask them to.
Yeah.
All right, so this week we've got, today we're going to start chapter 4. We're going to actually start unit 2, and I'll introduce that. And then the chapter 4 organizer is up. So if you want to start working on that, you can. And the link is there. You guys know that. And then it's also in Schoology. Tomorrow we're going to finish chapter 4, lesson 1. But there's a bit that we're going to talk about today, and we're introducing supply and demand, which we will come back to after break because it's really super important to understanding economics. And then Wednesday we're going to just do a more fun, relaxed activity, and that also would be a day for you guys to catch up on anything that you might be missing. And then obviously winter break starts after that. So the first thing I want to do is introduce markets, because this whole unit is going to be on markets. Just give me 1 second, I have to shut the door. So I've got a 2-minute video I'm going to show you. So just pay attention because I've got some questions. Oops, that did not work. I've got the link up. Just 1 second. Okay, so just pay attention, and then we'll talk about it when it's done.
Jeremy is earning money on the weekends by cutting grass for his neighbor. But what he doesn't realize is that he's also participating in a network of economic interactions called markets. The money Jeremy earns from cutting his neighbor's lawn is part of the local factor market. It's one small part of the web that ties Jeremy's labor to the rest of the economic market system. Mr. Johnson got the money to pay Jeremy from the work he does at his own job. Mr. Johnson is part of the larger labor market. Mr. Johnson's company makes car engines that are shipped and sold overseas. Because of those overseas sales, Mr. Johnson is connected to the global product market. To start his mowing business, Jeremy purchased his lawnmower from Mr. Phillips' neighborhood yard sale. Buying something at a yard sale is an example of a secondary market. Jeremy uses his hard-earned income to cool off with an ice-cold soda, participating in the local product market. Then, Jeremy fills up on gas so he can get back to the business of mowing lawns. The gas station takes their income to the bank, and where the money goes from there is another trip through the complex web of economic activity we experience every day. But that is another story.
All right. So, last week we were talking a little bit about local businesses in Monroe and businesses you might want to start. What markets do you think you guys are going to need to access? You guys can just shout it out. Or James, you can shout it out too. Any ideas? What about that local market? Do any of you work locally? Where do you work?
I work at Monroe Midwest.
Oh, okay. So is that new restaurant? Okay, so James got a job at the new restaurant, Monroe Midwest. So she's working locally. They probably source some of their things locally, some of them on a bigger market. Just understanding that markets are all interconnected is important. And then we're going to talk about the pieces that go into those different markets this unit. So like I said, this is a weird time to start this because demand and supply are very important. So we will review when we get back from break, but just know that we're talking about not just things that are here locally, but we're going to be talking about the global markets also. So, okay. So can anybody tell me without reading that what demand is? Or what is something that you demand when you're thinking about economics? What did you guys ask for Christmas? Anyone?
I asked for a switch.
Okay, so James asked for a switch. Anybody else?
Sketchbook.
Jess asked for a sketchbook. So those are small demands that we make as consumers that we need to, in order for there to be demand, we're looking at what do people want, and those three questions that we've talked about: what, how, and for whom. So what, how, and for whom to produce things. We're going to be learning how demand relates to that in this section. Actually, there's a whole chapter on demand. So we'll look at the basics today, and then we're going to go from there. All right. Anybody know somebody that wants the PS5? You might know somebody that wants it. So what do you think that shows? So it might be a little bit hard to see, but so we've got a gentleman who got his PS5 and it looks like there's a big long line behind him. So what's that showing? Anybody? Do a lot of people want it right now? From what I understand, people want it, and people, like somebody just recently, they found kids were stealing PS5s from like the trucks that were bringing them in. There's a huge demand for it right now. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about demand. This is the definition, and in your guys' chapter review, this would be one of the questions, is to define demand. It's a desire, ability, and willingness to buy a product. So that desire is there. Ability needs to be there too. If no one has any money, there's no demand because people can't purchase things. So, okay. I have a couple students in here that are on other classes, so if there's a little background noise, that's where it's coming from.
It's kind of like echoing.
Just 1 second. Destiny, do you want to try the...
Okay.
table up there just so that,
It was just real quick, I had to talk to it, was echoing her video.
okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay. So we looked at the productions possibilities curve in the last unit. Just take a look here. Take a look at this little graph. We're going to be going through things in much more detail so that it makes it easier for you all to understand. The calculation of demand comes from two things. So we're looking at price of a product, and products can be many things. They don't just have to be physical things. And the quantity available at any given point in time. And by doing that, we've come up with this little curve. The Latin term for this is ceteris paribus. And I probably pronounced that wrong. Mr. Toster would probably correct me, but that's okay. It just means when other things are held constant. So we're going to look at this demand curve a couple different ways today. When we're looking at this, it's very, very simplistic, meaning that it might change depending on 100 different outside facts. But if we just look at two things, at price and the quantity available, this is what our curve would look like. You're not logged in. Oh, geez, I was logged in. Apologize, guys. I was logged into this. I'm not exactly sure. Shoot. Wow. All right, hold on. Hey, you're supposed to be in a person class. Geometry. Yep. Okay, that's okay. I don't need it. I'm gonna just come back to your. I apologize for that. I'm just gonna come back to. Yeah. Why aren't you an access?
I want you to science experiments and stuff for that and chat with that.
Yeah, but we're supposed to go with that. Well, she's not going to experiment because there's nobody else in there.
She does them and shows us sometimes.
We're just gonna keep moving. So, individual demand schedules. We're going to come back to that graphic a little bit later when we talk about more of a global demand schedule and how that happens, but I apologize for, sorry, there's a little bit of noise in here. I apologize for that not working. I don't know what's going on. So individual demand schedules. What you saw on the last slide was an individual demand schedule. So you have a price of DVDs, which not sure if anybody buys DVDs anymore, but this is the one from your book, and quantity demanded. So what you can see here is at $25, nobody wants to buy a DVD. As the price goes down, more people will demand that object. So the more something costs, the less people want to purchase it.
Or if it's newer. Like if it just came out and you can't get it on me.
Yep, so Destiny just brought up something that actually is one of those outlying things. When something comes out and it's new, people are willing to pay more money for it. But we're going to get to that. That's another concept that we're going to talk about later. Okay, so in general, when the price of a product goes down, people are more willing to buy it. When the price goes up, less people are willing to buy it. And that is demonstrated by that demand curve. And there's several examples. If you look at your online book, there's several examples in there. There's also some examples in the chapter 4 review guide. So you can take a look at that too. Okay, so this was one of the ones from your book. And I just copied it into a slide because you can't access it yourself. So this is an example of an individual demand curve. This is where I wish you could actually see me. Well, I'll just point with my pointer here. So they're saying if one person wants to purchase something, let's say it's that DVD again, and it's $10, this person isn't going to buy it at $10 and they're not going to buy it at $9. Once it's $6, then they would buy one. And as the price goes down, they would purchase more. So I know that this seems really easy and intuitive, but it's important to understand because when we get to supply, it's going to look completely different than this. And it's important to understand the different curves the farther we get in this class, because they overlap and they also contradict each other at times. All right, the law of demand states that the quantity demanded of a product varies inversely with price. So that means the higher something is, the less people buy, or the less something costs, the more people buy. That's just what inverse means. And it's called a law because it's proven true time and time and again. We're going to talk about the law of supply when we get back from Christmas break. And you'll see that it looks a little bit different than this. But in economics, there are lots of laws. Okay, so this is looking at two different people, and they're buying burritos. So Mike and Julia are going to buy some burritos. These are their individual demand curves. Can everybody see that? Can you see that okay? For those of you that I'm presenting to, hopefully everybody can see that. So a demand curve shows the quantities of a product demanded by everyone who is interested in purchasing it at all possible prices. So when you look at Mike and Julia's demand, it looks a little bit different. Mike is willing to, he won't buy a burrito when it costs $10. He's willing to buy it when it is $6. And then it just goes down from there. Julia's is a little bit different. When you put the two of them together, you're looking at a market demand curve. So in other words, to get a market demand curve, you're looking at a whole market. Do you guys remember? So let's use an example that's a little bit closer to home. What's a place you guys like to go to eat? Give me.
McDonald's.
Destiny yelled McDonald's. Anybody else? Go ahead. Culver's. Anybody else? Dairy Queen. Okay, so we're listing some of the fast food places in town, right? So in all those places, they all have burgers, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're willing to pay a certain amount of money to purchase a burger. Let's just pick one of those places.
Culver's.
Okay, Destiny yelled Culver's. So we want to go to Culver's. How much are we willing to pay for a burger at Culver's? What are they, about $4?
Okay, I gotta think about it. I used to work at Culver's.
Well, let's just say they're $5 for the eat.
I think they're roughly between 5 and 8.
Okay.
Depending on how much you get on it.
Yep. So let's just say that a plain cheeseburger at Culver's is $5. And some of us would be willing, like I'd be willing to pay that at Culver's. But maybe Destiny's not willing to pay that at Culver's. Maybe she's willing to pay $5 at Dairy Queen because she likes Dairy Queen better. And then maybe somebody would be willing to pay more than that at Culver's because they have really good burgers, right? So when you're talking about that, you're talking about the fact that you're talking about the market for burgers in Monroe. And the market for burgers would say that, you know, this person is going to spend $5 on a burger and they'll be willing to purchase, you know, one burger at that. If the price of burgers went down, they might be willing to purchase more burgers. So when you're looking at a market demand, you're looking at everybody in a market that's purchasing the same item. Does anyone have any questions on that? I want to make sure everybody understands that because it is important. Got it? James is shaking her head, yes? Okay. All right. So demand and marginal utility. Marginal utility is also a concept that is important to know, and we'll be talking more. Once again, everything that we're doing today is the basics of what will be coming up. So marginal utility is the extra satisfaction of additional usefulness obtained by acquiring multiple units of a product. I know that's a mouthful, right? So just taking the burrito example. So you've got little Chihuahua there that likes burritos. So the more and more we use of something, the more and more we consume a product, the extra satisfaction we get from using the quantities begins to decline. And I realize you can't see me pointing to things on the screen. I apologize. I'm not used to having kiddos in class. So if you look here, the more we use the product, the extra satisfaction we get, it diminishes. So that word diminishing means it gets less. So if you look at our poor little Chihuahua here, and this is actually true for dogs, like they might get a bite of something, they're like, oh, and they eat it up really fast. I mean, even with us as humans, if you think of your favorite food and you get it, or that favorite Christmas cookie that you make this time of year, and you eat a whole bunch of them that first day, but then after eating a whole bunch of them, they kind of lose their appeal. You don't want them as much anymore. That is this idea, diminishing marginal utility, to the fact that at some point there's going to come a point where you don't want any more. So there's zero demand at that point. So once again, make sure that you guys are filling out that chapter 4 review, because all these concepts are on there and they're important that you guys understand. The last thing here says, because of diminishing marginal utility, people aren't willing to pay sometimes as much for a second or third item as they were for the first one. Now, this might not be true for something like a cheeseburger, but when you look at bigger items, this becomes very apparent. And I've been asking you guys to think about, if you were to go off and start your own business, what would that be? These are things to think about on the end of a business owner. It's how much can we offer for what price, and are people still going to demand it? Does anyone have any questions? Does this make sense? Mitch and Jess, does this make sense? Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so we're going to do the little quiz together for this unit, or this section. And I just want to make sure that you guys are understanding the answers. I will make sure that it's working. That other one wasn't as important, but this one I want you guys to be seeing. Okay, so can everyone see that? Can everyone see the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It should come up now. Well, this worked when I was practicing it last week. I don't know why it's not working, but that's okay. We'll go here. Sorry about the delay. All right, so let's just do the quiz. So I need you guys to shout out answers. All right, we'll just do this together. I'm going to read it. We'll talk it through. I know this isn't real fun and interactive, but it'll give me a good basis of knowing what you guys understand. So the first question says, in addition to the desire to own a product, what else does demand include? Does it include the cost to produce the product, the value and price of the product, the desire and willingness and ability to buy the product, or the behavior and decision making of people who buy the product? Somebody says C, somebody says B, the value and price of the product. Well, let's look at a hint. Remember, it doesn't make much sense to want something if you can't afford it. So these two are absolutely important, Mitch. This one adds that ability. So we can't check we'll check them when we get to the end. And these might look real similar to the quizzes that we've had in class, but we're just going to do this one together. In what does microeconomics specialize? I'm going to skip that one because we didn't talk about that. We're going to come back to microeconomics. What are the two variables needed to calculate demand? So think about that graph. What two things were on there? Was desire and ability to pay on there? Was it at any given point in time, the price of the product and quantity would be purchased at that price? The number of people willing to buy a product and the number and type of competing products, or previous number of purchases and likelihood of future purchases. So what were the two things that were on that demand curve? Anybody have ideas? Mitch, you had your speaker on.
It was on from the last question.
Oh, okay. I could go back to that. Let me go back to that little graphic.
Can you read the question?
Yep, I can. Yep. I will go back to that. Here, there's a demand curve. So we've got price and quantity. And the question is, what are the two variables needed to calculate demand? So I'm thinking it's here, right? At any point in time, the price of the product and quantity would be purchased at that price. How is a demand schedule different from a demand curve? Ooh, that's a tough one. That might be a lot to do. We'll come back to it with the right answer when we're done. We'll do some of these short ones together. Which of these is an example of an incentive? An economic policy in a country, the highest price that can be charged for a good or service, a drop in the price of a product, an industry owned and controlled by a government. So when we're looking at an incentive to buy something, which one of these would give you an incentive to buy something? What do you think? Would a drop in price make you more or less likely to buy something? That would be an incentive. So like when we're talking about the restaurants, if Culver's was running a sale and burgers were $2, I'd probably be more likely to stop there for dinner than I would if they were $8. When a price goes up, consumers are more likely to do what? When the price goes up, do they buy more, buy less, produce more, or produce less? B.
Buy less.
Buy less. Good. Why does the law of demand state that the relationship between price and the quantity demanded is inverse? What does that mean? As one goes up, what happens to the other?
The other one goes down.
Yeah, so which answer is that?
C.
C. What does a market demand curve show? So a demand curve shows one individual. A market demand would show
B.
that would be a demand curve, would be one person. A market curve would show everyone who's interested in buying that product. Okay, in economics, the term utility refers to what? So that's when we were looking at the burrito, the dog eating burrito. And the utility of those burritos was what? You're looking at here, you're looking at usefulness. After you eat 10 burritos, another burrito in front of you is probably not so useful. Is that fair? Actually, I got a story. I'll do this last one and then I'll come back to it so I can like share my face on the screen. And what is marginal utility? Is it the change in a resale value of a product? The extra production cost of a product? the extra usefulness of a product, or the change in price of a product. So marginal utility. It would be, is it this one? Usefulness? Need a hint. Yep. Need or extra. When you're talking about usefulness. And then why do consumers experience diminishing marginal utility? Because they no longer like what they've purchased, because they need more of a product after they make their first purchase of it, because they're forced to spend money to buy additional products, because it usually seems as if the second item never gives as much satisfaction as the first. So diminishing marginal utility, I believe, is that one. All right. So, we'll come back to microeconomics, but I believe that, oh, it was A. Okay. It's really hard to see on there. We'll come back to those. But if you guys want to take this quiz, this I know that you can access in your online books. Anyway, I'm going to stop sharing that. I'm going to stop